Hey, everybody. I'm all by myself tonight. Welcome to episode 2 of that Halloween 3 movie book club. And it's going to be me all by my lonesome tonight. Joe and Brad had some last minute things come up. So I figured let me get on while I remember everything I read and still do the episode. And if they have time, maybe they'll jump in and hang out with us. Because tonight we're doing chapters 5 through 9. If you missed the prologue and chapters 1 through 4, make sure you go check out the links. Go check it out on the channel. Get caught up, but hang out anyway. If you know the movie, it's not like we're going to spoil anything. But there are a couple cool differences in these chapters. And see our good buddy Joseph. What's up, Joseph? Our guy is hanging out in the chat. So when we last left off, we had left off chapter 4. And moving up with chapter 5. Chapter 5 is... Let me get my banners up here so we can go through everything. Chapter 5, I'm calling The Grimbridges and Welcome to Santa Mira, which is pretty self-explanatory if you remember in the movie. Actually, where we left off on chapter 4 is they were going to Ellie's dad's store, Grimbridges, in Sierra Madre. That's the name of the town. And that's where we're going to pick up, and that's pretty much on spot with what happens in the film. So the scene starts, they start at Grimbridge's store, just like in the film, and it's like a general store. It's not just like a costume shop. And the whole thing plays out where she's talking about her dad and how the kids would just come and play in the aisles, that like he used to let her do, and it sounded like he was like a lovable guy that the local kids loved and just got to play with everything. And what happens during this, which doesn't happen in the film, is a young boy comes on his roller skates and knocks on the door and says, "Where's Pop?" So I guess the local kids must have called him Pop. And so where's Pop? And it's almost Halloween. We're looking for him, and they're saying, well, he's not here. And, they want to say anything to the kid about him passing away. And he's like, well, is the store going to open up again? And they said, well, we don't know. Maybe we'll see. So he goes off and says, all right, just tell him we're looking for him. It's almost Halloween. So it really brings Ellie down because it just goes to show you how much he was loved by the children in the neighborhood. And they're talking basically just like in the movie about where the masks were made in Santa Mira. And she said, I'm not going back until I find out what happened to my father. So they decide they're going to go take a look at it. So plays out just like in the film. They hop in the car. They go, of course, get some beer. Because like you've ever seen in the film, they go get some beer. And he's got to call Linda, his ex-wife, because he's supposed to pick the kids up and spend the whole day with them on Saturday. And she's not going to be none too happy. So, of course, he calls her. Let's see, make sure I'm getting everything I see here. He comes to the store. Yep, I got all that. Chalice makes the phone call. Now, instead of just making the phone call, if you remember where he makes the phone call in the movie is actually the same location that you see Michael Myers in Halloween 2 walk around the corner. So in this, he's actually in a phone booth. Because if you read the book, he makes a phone call and there's a bunch of junk at the bottom. And as the phone's ringing, he's noticing all the shit that's at the bottom of if anybody's ever been in an old school phone booth, there was always garbage on the floor. People used to just drop shit all the time. So he's going through, there's a bunch of junk. And then they make mention of, he sees a matchbook for the Rabbit and Red Lounge. So there's your little Easter egg from Halloween. And he's arguing with Linda. And he downs a Miller Lite. God bless him, Miller High Life. And he's like, I gotta go to this conference. Same thing plays out in the film. So, and of course, while they're driving, he is having a little bit of guilt, which you don't see in the movie, where he's thinking, I really shouldn't have dissed my kids. I really should go spend some time with them. But he kind of wants to see how this plays out, go help this girl out, because he's still upset about what happened at the hospital, felt like he was taking responsibility, even though it really wasn't his fault. So he goes. And while they're driving, they're just chatting away. And Ellie tells this whole story, which is going to come back later on in this book. It's not in the film. Ellie's talking about, while she's driving, about a bird that her father gave her as a child. It wouldn't sing, so she felt bad for it, so she set it free. And her father gave her a beating for it. And she said, you never forget a beating. So that's going to play someplace a little bit further. That's why I made a note of it. It says, child never forgets a beating. And and he's sitting there thinking about her, and he's comparing he's comparing Ellie to his ex-wife Linda, strengths and weaknesses, because she's saying, this person's so sure of herself and is going out of her way to do these things. And Linda is just like a stubborn, she's just got to stick up her ass. So he's sitting there thinking about that. So he does fall asleep because while they're driving to Santa Mira, Chalice does pass out. He takes a nap, and while he's sleeping, he dreams of it. Now, this is a little weird. This is where it gets a little sci-fi. He falls asleep and dreams of a town where he is searching for something, but does not know what he wants, what he's looking for. The 9 o'clock hour was important, but he didn't know why. He hears the weeping of children, and he sees and hears children crying, hiding their faces. He sees a tall figure leading them. They come to I had to write it all down because it was just a very weird dream, and I just want to make sure I got it all right. They come to a fire, and the figure is leading them, and he turns and he has no face, only blank, fleshy white skin, which I'm assuming is just, it's obviously this is like a premonition of what what Cochran's going to be doing, but it's probably an homage to Michael Myers' mask, blank, pale, neutral features. So with no discerning features, icy eyes lost behind dark slits, a face without grief or remorse or compassion or any vestige of human feeling. Now, who does that sound like, right? But he's dreaming of Conal Cochran somehow, some way, a premonition, but he's really describing almost like what Michael Myers looks like. So it's kind of cool. Now the figure produces a knife, and the children scream. The sky turns red. The children scream, nothing but blood, as Chalice screams, "Wait!" As he runs forward to stop it, he's too late. The figure begins to laugh at him. The figure raises the knife to Chalice. He sees it. At 9 o'clock chimes. Then he wakes up to Ellie offering him an apple. Then he's up out of his dream, and they're still driving. And she's like, "Oh, she was eating an apple," saying, "No, there's a bunch of apples. You want to eat something?" So there's just a weird premonition dream. They see Santa Mira in the distance and the Pacific Ocean. So obviously Santa Mira is right along the coast, but you don't really see water from what I remember. I don't remember seeing water in the film. But they do see these big ass tractor trailers barreling back and forth down the road, almost running them off the road with the big silver Shamrock logo on it, because they're just hauling ass trying to get as many masks out as they can to get them on everybody's heads, all the kids' heads. And that's basically them arriving in Santa Mira is how chapter 5 ends. So we move on to chapter 6. Chapter 6, I'm calling, "Where Do You Want to Sleep, Dr. Chalice?" and Rafferty's Deluxe. And you'll see why I'm saying Rafferty's Deluxe in a moment. So chapter 6 starts out, they see Rafferty's Deluxe, a gas station and motel. So that's why I said you'll find out, because Mr. Rafferty in the film was the proprietor of the Rosa Shannon Motel. And the novelization is called Rafferty's Deluxe. It's a gas station and a motel. So they stop to get gas. And, they're same thing. Before they get to the gas station, they're driving through and they're noticing they feel like they're in a fishbowl because everybody's staring and looking at them, just like in the film. They drive through town towards the factory and see an old abandoned church. And they make note of this. They read that the church is kind of all run down, and says Church of St. Patrick, Reverend Father Tom Malone. Now, where do we hear of Father Malone? That's right, the fog. So a little nod to the fog as well. Ellie says they need a plan as they arrive at the factory, and Chalice suggests that, so this is a little funny, Chalice suggests that they get some more beer and go to the beach. That's probably something I would say too. So she's like, no, we need a solid plan. I'm serious. So they decide to go back to the motel, just like in the film, talk to Rafferty. Before they drive away, though, a garage door opens at the factory, and they do see Cochran's limousine come out. It's got all the tinted windows, so they don't see what he looks like, but they just assume somebody come out of the factory with that kind of car. It must be their, it's got to be the owner. They arrive at the gas station and are greeted by Mr. Rafferty, just like in the film. Excuse me. Chalice, I may notice this for our Irish friends out there. Chalice does call Santa Mira Dublin West, so because of all the Irish people in it. And there's a bit more dialogue between Mr. Rafferty and getting more masks and how Cochran owns everything in town. And he's saying actually Cochran does own everything. He owns the motel, but he rents it from him, and Mr. Cochran lets him run it while he rents it from him. So he does make note that everything in the town is owned by Conal Cochran. And the whole scene where, he goes to help out. Oh, I'll help get your luggage, light packers, because she pulls the suitcase out and there's not much in it. They see Cochran drive by again, just like Rafferty mentions in the movies. Oh, there's Mr. Cochran now, and he drives by, so they'd mention that. The Kupfer, this is when we get the Kupfer is introduced, which is big Buddy Kupfer, little Buddy, and Betty Bunny. Betty Kupfer, Betty Bunny. Oh, Jesus. Let me take something to drink. But yeah, this is when they come barreling in with the RV, and little Buddy's bike comes flying off the front and almost hits Chalice. And he picks it up, and Buddy comes over. Oh, I'm sorry. Did I hurt you? Thanks for picking it up. And little Buddy's all pissed. Did you break my bike? And apparently he jumps on and rides off because it was not broken. So all that stuff's pretty much the same. Let's see. He makes note. He's like, this family looks like the father is the president of the Boosters Club. And he goes into the office to check in, just like in the film, while Ellie's talking to Rafferty. And then he looks at the ledger and does see that Harry Grimbridge did stay there. So just like in the film, he says, oh, I left $40 on the counter. I filled everything out and walk away. And then he tells Ellie, your father did stay here. The Kupfers, what they do make mention here, that the Kupfers are there on Betty Bunny. I know. Thanks, Ryan. My man on an island by myself tonight. So yeah, Betty Bunny. Betty Bunny. So they make notice that the Kupfers are there at Cochran's expense. So they're there for free. But I do remember in the movie, you actually hear Buddy Kupfer in the background saying, honey, it's a freebie. So I guess we just didn't hear that dialogue. Marge Gutman pulls up and starts her whole rant. Damn factory, that whole bullshit and all that other stuff. At least somebody's got my back. Thank you. So Marge pulls up and, runs into Chalice. And he walks into the room just like in the film, says, oh, this place is a freaking zoo because of all the shit was going on. And that's when he says, yeah, your father did stay here. And then he says, you know what? Relax. I could use a drink. Let's relax and figure this out. And then we can stay here and nobody's sitting here staring at us. And it plays out pretty much the same where he's like, oh, I guess these clothes could hold out for another day. And he's like, maybe I should get another room. And he's like, well, she says, of course, that would look a little bit obvious. And he says, well, I can sleep in the car. And then, of course, where do you want to sleep, Dr. Chalice? And, of course, our lovely Tom Atkins gets the little piece of ass, the young piece of ass. And that's how the chapter 6 ends, with him getting some. God bless him. All right, so let's move. We can move on to chapter 7, which I'm calling Marge and Starker the hobo. Yes, the hobo in the movie had a name. His name was Starker. Where that ever came from, who the hell knows? But blame it on the writers. So Chalice goes to get ice. And now this is where it all gets a little different. So, and he sees Marge Gutman. She's in the telephone booth and she's having a conversation. She's going back and forth. She's all pissed off that she's still stuck there. And when she comes out and says, okay, you can use it now. And he's like, oh no, I wasn't looking for the phone. He was just getting ice. And they strike up a conversation between the two of them. And the conversation with Chalice and Marge, she's complaining about the motel, saying that it's got Hitchcock showers, which I thought was a cool reference. And basically the conversation that she has with Ellie, about these things are really not as quality as they used to be because the Silver Shamrock thing fell off. Now she's having this conversation with Chalice, and she shows, here, look at the mask, and shows the Silver Shamrock logo that's in the back of the mask, and she notices and shows it to Chalice in the novel the like the computer board on the back of it. And she's like, I don't know what this does. He's like, I don't know why they would even have that on there, but that's weird. So she asks, do you have any batteries? Because she's like, wants to put batteries to it to see if it does anything. Because she said it looks like inside of a transistor radio, and he's like, no, I don't have them. And he asks her, like, do you happen to know if there's a packaged goods store, like a liquor store? And she's like, no. But then as they go their separate ways, she's, oh, wait, no, I forgot there is a place. And she gives them directions to a packaged goods store. And then she says, oh, if you think of it, get me batteries. So she goes back to her room, and then he takes off and goes to find the liquor store. So just like in the film, we see him come out of the liquor store, and he's got his bottle of booze. And as he's walking, he keeps hearing footsteps behind him. And when he stops, they stop. He starts walking again, and he starts hearing footsteps again. When he stops, they stop again. So he's like, let me take a shortcut. He goes down an alley, and this is where he runs into Starker, the hobo, just like the drunk guy that was in the movie. And if you Return to the Living Dead fans, that guy in the movie is actually the Colonel that was in the Return of the Living Dead. I forget the actor's name. So this is where the scene where it plays out, and the hobo's there, and oh wow, so that bottle looked kind of heavy. I don't have no diseases. You mind if I have a drink? And of course, Charles doesn't have a drink. And then he starts talking to him. He's like, so do you know anything about this Conal Cochran? And it's just like in the movie. He's telling me, he's brought everything in from outside, wouldn't hire anybody local. He brought everything up in the town. He made this town a big pile of nothing. It used to be a good town, and now it's basically a pile of shit. And he's saying, you watch. You see, he's like, see the cameras everywhere. He's watching you. He's watching everybody. And the whole scene where he says, I'm going to get a thing of Molotov cocktails and blow it and burn that damn factory down. So that all plays out the same. And of course, he's like, no, shh. He's like, no, I don't care. So, of course, then they go their separate ways. But in the novelization, he actually follows him because he's curious to see where this guy lived. So he follows him, and he sees he's in that little shanty that he set up that you see in the film where he's eating the friggin' squeeze cheese. So he does see where he lives. Then he's like, oh, well, I guess he's okay. I guess that's where he lives. So he starts to walk back to the hotel. As he's walking, he sees on the other side of the street, he sees two men in suits walking in the direction of where the hobo is, because we know what they're going to do to him. But in the novelization, there's no mention of what happened, only the aftermath. Like in the movie, you see the two guys in the suits come right to his little shanty, and one of them being our great Dick Warlock, and them pulling his head off. Here, there's no mention of that actual scene, but the aftermath, you'll find out later, is discovered by Chalice. So let's see, where did because that was a mouthful. Let me see where my notes are. Yes, the liquor store conversation takes place. Looks batteries. Yep, we got all that. Wow, man, I'm on a roll. So, and actually the liquor store is called T. Malone's. I don't know why they brought up Malone again, because just another little reference. So he walks down the alley. Yeah, the whole thing plays out like I just mentioned. So now he gets back. Chalice gets back to the room, and Ellie comes out in a towel, and he pours him a couple of drinks, and she starts to rub baby oil on herself, which I would love to have seen in the movie, because I love Stacey Nelson. She was cute as hell. I would love to see her rubbing herself down with baby oil. So I guess she's trying to turn him on. They start kissing, and of course, the TV's on. They hear the Silver Shamrock novelty song, just like in the freaking movie. And he's like, oh my God, this thing forever. Then they hear something, and Ellie, they stop, and Ellie says it's probably Marge. So this is pretty funny for those that are always wondering how Tom Atkins is older and he's getting this cute younger girl who was probably in her 20s. Chalice starts to feel, because she makes mention of, oh, that must be Marge Gutman. I met her earlier. She's very nice. She reminds me of my mother. And then he's like, Jesus Christ, your mother? I'm probably the same age as her. So that's when he asks her, how old are you? And she says, of course, I'm old enough. But I just thought it was funny because everybody's always just like, man, Tom Atkins is nailing all these younger chicks. God bless him. Then they go back to making out and just doing their thing. And then all of a sudden they hear a scream. Then they hear Marge scream. And then Chalice screams out, batteries. Shit. I hope she didn't, I should have took it from her. I shouldn't have let her play with it, because he figures she was screwing around with it and maybe something happened and she got hurt. That's the first thing that came to his mind. And they go to Marge's room. Now in the film, you only see her in her room. In the novelization, they come out of their room and they see the door is already open, and they go in, and Chalice sees what happened to Marge and tells her, no, get out, go outside. You don't. She's like, no, I want to see what happened. So she sees her and she's all freaked out. And of course he's taking a look at her. He feels her for a pulse, and she's still alive. And that's when he sees the spider come out. So he's in the room when all that happens. In the film, there's nobody in the room. So they come out because they're going to go get help. And then they see Mr. Rafferty hang up a phone. He's coming out. He's like, don't trouble yourself. I've already made a call. I heard the noise. I came in and checked on her. I've already made a phone call. And they, of course, boom, the van shows up just like in the film. And all the guys in the white suits come running out. And they come and they grab her. And of course, just like in the film, he's like, hey, I'm a doctor. And they're trying to push him away. And he says, well, who's taking responsibility of this patient? And Mr. Rafferty's like, well, Mr. Cochran, of course. Then, of course, Cochran shows up. And the whole scene pretty much plays out the same, where, he says, we have a marvelous facility for emergency treatment. She'll get the best of care. So they rush her into the van. And then the whole scene where he's trying to talk to Rafferty, like what's going on and all this other stuff, and talking to some of the other suits. So Chalice goes and tries to take a look. So he, in this novelization, he's sneaking to look inside to see what they're doing. There's none of this in the movie. So this is how he finds out that Starker, the hobo, is dead, because when he looks in the van, he sees like one of the guys in the lab coats just wrapping gauze around Gutman's face. He's like, why aren't they doing anything? They're not stabilizing her, antibiotics, helping her breathe. They did nothing. They're just basically wrapping her up just to deal with it. But right in front of her, inside this big van, he sees another body with a white sheet over it up to its neck. And then he notices that there's no head, but he recognized the clothes. He's like, he knew it was the hobo Starker, but he couldn't see his head. So he either thought the head was missing, or he just wondered what the hell it was. Oh, Ryan, when they showed her face all blown out from the mask was one of my favorite moments in the whole. Yeah, it was such great. I'm trying to remember. I have to go back and look. And who did the special effects in that? Yeah, because that was really cool. I mean, such a great image, and then the little spider coming out. I would have thought it would be cool if you actually saw them in the room checking her out, just like in the novelization. So, of course, we walk. He's hanging out to Ellie, and of course, everybody comes out, like the Kupfers. Everybody's outside, just like in the movie. He's like, Cochran's like, everything's okay. We're gonna take her. She's gonna be fine. Everybody, go about your business. And then, let's see. And they go to Marge's room, and the door was open. Oh wow, I really was talking too far, because the end of chapter 7 is just simply her scream. So I was actually chewing everybody's ear off during Marge's misfire. I was just looking down at my notes, but I just remember it so well. So yeah, so while that happens, Chalice gets, sees the Buddy Kupfer and family and some other people that are staying there, and they're all outside. So they all go in after Cochran says everything's fine. Let's see, Chalice goes to the office, and then Chalice goes, he does hear them say misfire, just like in the film. And he's like, misfire, I don't understand what that means. But then before they go back, he goes and makes a phone call and calls the sheriff in which office. He used the phone. Sierra Mesa. I can't remember the town. Calls the sheriff at Sierra Mesa and to ask about the investigation from her dad. Now in the film, he keeps calling the one lab girl, I guess it works in forensics, Teddy. There's no mention of her in this book, so she's not in the book. That is just strictly for the film, and so you don't see her get killed with the drill to the head, just like in the movie. Here, he just makes one simple call, and then he said the same thing. There must have been a mix-up. There's all like plastic parts and other pieces there, so there must have been a mistake because we can't find any body, just like in the film. But there was there's no Teddy. And he says, call Laytonville police, because that's the next town from where he is. They should be able to help you out. So then, they go back to bed. Morning comes, and he lets Ellie sleep late. And this is when they arrive at the factory. So they go inside the factory, and of course, she asks about the lost order for the Grimbridges, and all that. Basically, the stuff that's in the film plays out the same, and the whole thing about, yeah, we saw a guy in a little green station wagon here, that out to the north, and it ends with, you want to place another order just like in the film? She says no. So that's where chapter 8 ends. So you look to chapter 9. Chapter 9, Silver Shamrock tour with Conal Cochran. Now everybody remembers this whole scene and how it all plays out. So now the Kupfers arrive, just like in the film. They show up, and Buddy Kupfer here to see Conal Cochran, just like in the film. Cochran comes out to see the Kupfers, and the scene plays the same pretty much. He's like, this is Mr. Kupfer sold the most masks by far of anybody in the country last year. So he's like their outstanding salesman. So that all plays out the same. And the scene with the Smiths, which is the fake name that they gave. It's like, oh, and you're Mr. and Mrs. Smith. Yes. And he's sitting there saying, I apologize for your lost order. There's one being prepared. It's on me, just like in the film. And Buddy's falling over him because he thinks he's the greatest guy in the world. So that all plays out the same. And the only difference in the scene is he's going to get offered to give the Kupfers a tour. So in the movie, Buddy Kupfer says, oh, can my friends come too? And Conal Cochran says, sure, I was just about to ask him. In the book, he just flat out asked him, said, oh, would you guys like to come on the tour with us? So that's just a little bit of a difference there. Phil Smith, the actress that played Marge, is actually married. Yep. That was his ex-wife, Garn Stevens, who actually just died. She just died a couple months ago. Yep. Oh, this is simply, we're just reading from the book, not the movie. So there's really no timestamp. We're just reading up on chapter 9 right now. So basically, we're reading up chapter 9, which is basically the scene from the movie where the Kupfers, Buddy Kupfer, arrives at the Silver Shamrock office to meet Conal Cochran and Dan Chalice. They're all still they're there. So of course they go off on the tour, just like in the movie. Factory tour plays the same. Chalice does make notice as they're walking through. He's like, the workers appear hypnotized. Like there's nobody talking. There's no music playing. Like usually you go to a warehouse or any type of factory, usually music playing, and then people are talking. They're just like, he says they look like they're hypnotized. If you want to do the audio of the book, it should be in the description. If you want to check it out. Then they go and they see how everything's made. Then they do go downstairs, like in the film. And then Buddy Kupfer's like, oh, this is it, Hall of Fame time, just like in the movie, where he sees all the stuff he did. And he's like, you don't really know who Cochran is? Of all the gags he made, he created sticky toilet paper and the dead dwarf gag, it's soft chainsaw. And he explains how Silver Shamrock Novelties stopped making all the joke novelties because there was no money in it. So that's when he started making the masks. But he started making the masks for a different reason, but he's saying because there was no profit in it. And he's saying how this year alone, there should be over 50 million masks on kids. So that just gives you a scope of how many masks were sold and how many masks he was trying to get on these kids. Then, now this plays a little different. In the movie, they end the tour there, then they go up to the loading dock area. Here they go into another room. And in that room is a bunch of employees. There's a cake, and they have a celebration celebrating Buddy Kupfer as the salesman of the year for them. So they go into this other room. They see, and Cochran's got a bunch of employees there. There's a cake. There's food. And he presents Buddy with the Outstanding Sales Award and an envelope with $5,000 in it. And there's cake and food, and they have a little bit of a party. So while they're there, Ellie sees another door. So she tries to sneak it open the door to see what's behind it, and they're standing one of the people in the suits. So she shuts it real quick because she wanted to see what's going on, and they're just wondering, like, why do you have like all this security? This is a mask factory, so that it's just It's just really weird. And of course, like in the movie, little buddy asks for a mask. Daddy, I want a mask. So he grabs for a mask, but if Cochran, of course, says, no, 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 I'll give you one of these. So he has got to get one that's still in plastic because it's got the silver Shamrock chip on the back. And he puts it on, just like in the movie, the jack-o'-lantern mask. But he asks, they see the sign for final processing. He's like, oh, what is final processing? And he's like, oh, it's just quality control, just seal of approval. And say, oh, I'd love to see it. And of course, just like the film, he's like, oh, there's volatile chemicals in there. I wouldn't want anybody to be hurt because he doesn't want anybody in there because that's where the big Stonehenge thing is. So that pretty much plays out the same. And they go up to the loading dock area. Let's see. Cochran invites the cup. And then you hear, just like in the film, he invites the Cupfers for breakfast, and we know what's going to happen. And Chalice notices the men in the suits all guarding the factory and sees how they really resemble the guy that killed Ellie's father, just like in the film. And that's actually how chapter 9 ends, with that scene. Now, it doesn't end with the scene where she sees the station wagon yet, but it just ends where he sees everybody and he's like, wow, these people look awfully familiar. And then we're going to pick up with chapter 10 in 2 weeks. Is there a Discord for this channel? No, I'm not even familiar with what Discord is. I know my son goes on Discord, but no, we just do everything live here or pre-recorded. But I have to look into Discord to see what it actually is. But that is basically the next 5 chapters of the Halloween 3 novelization. Now, there are some little differences that are kind of cool. So if you go back and we say, okay, let's go to chapter 5, Grimbridges and the Santa Mira. I mean, there's just a couple of different scenes that this chapter isn't too far off, except for, his whole dream where he's imagining like Chalice or imagining this figure, almost like a premonition of what's going to come, which is weird. Chapter 6, where do you want to sleep? Dr. Chalice. We all know he wants to sleep, and who he's going to sleep with. God bless him. And Rafferty's Deluxe, which is actually the Rosa Shannon Motel. So there's a couple different differences there. And Marge and the Starker, the hobo, a little different because now she has this whole conversation with Chalice, and she's telling him about the chip because she sees it and tells Chalice about it. Now they're both wondering about it, which is not in the film. And this would have played out really cool because just like who was in it? Just like Phil mentioned at the time, Garden Stevens was his wife. So it would have been cool to see the two of them on camera and then him go to a hotel room to bang some young chick. Now that's just that's the way to do it. That is the way to do it. So what do we leave off? Chapter 7. So chapter 7. So of course it goes to Marge's misfire because right at the end of chapter 7, they hear a scream. And this is where the scene plays out where Marge's face is all blown apart. And then, but the big difference here, which would have been great to see in the film, is that Chalice and Ellie go into the room, which you don't see anybody go into the room and actually see her. So he sees what happens and comes out and runs into Rafferty, who says, I heard everything. I saw what happened to her. And that's when he said he called for help. And of course, then Cochran and his minions show up and they whisk her off. And this is where the different part is, where he notices the hobo, but no head, in the same van where they put Marge Gutman, because you didn't see that actual head coming off, just like you saw in the movie. And chapter 9, which is which is going to be the end for this week, and then we'll pick up, like I said, in 2 weeks for the last 3 chapters in the epilogue. And we'll finish the novel. Is basically just exactly what that is, where they arrive and they ask about their order. Then they take the whole tour with the Cupfers, and they see all the stuff, and then it ends with him seeing all the guys that look just like the guy that killed Harry Grimbridge, Ellie's father. And that's our 5 chapters for tonight. Let me see what's going on in the chat. Is there a Discord for the channel? I'm going to have to look into it. I'll let you know. See how that works out, because I'm not familiar with it. I have to see how the Discord works. I know my son does it with his friends, but I'm an old guy, so I'm good with this stuff. I got to figure out how to use all this other shit. So, it's a fun novelization. This novelization goes pretty quick, and the last part of it is actually it's a little bit longer than the last 2 episodes going to be, and it's the same amount of chapters, but there's a lot that goes on, and there's pretty much plays the same as the film with a couple of different extra scenes. One being the little reference I made earlier, where Ellie is telling Chalice about that her father had given her this bird, and the bird wouldn't sing. You're going to see where that comes into play a little bit later on, which is a little weird, but I don't know. It's probably better it wasn't in the film. So that is it for this lovely night. Like I said, Joe and Brett were not able to make it tonight, so I figured let's just run my mouth further and just go through these chapters. They had a few other commitments, but we got some other stuff going up on the channel. If you guys didn't see us last night, we did Halloween Ends watch along. It was a lot of fun. Go check it out. I see a lot of familiar faces in the chat that were there last night. That was a lot of fun. You can love it or like it. It was a fun watch with everybody. So, but we got some other stuff going on. So in 2 weeks, we will do episode 3, where we will finish this novel, and then 2 weeks after that, we're going to start the Halloween 4 novelization. So that's going to be cool. But we're just going to work our way through all these novels and probably do some more book club with some other horror novels, because we're having a good time with this. And I love seeing the differences from the book to the movie. It's kind of cool. Then what else we got going on? This is up on the channel now. This is top 5 movie cast ensembles we did about a week or 2 ago. So that's up on the channel. Go check that out. That was a lot of fun. There's 3 of my favorites right there on the screen. This will be up on the channel on Monday morning. Top 5 John Carpenter soundtracks. This is from last week's episode of the beginning of the week, rather. We did an episode with Jeremy Todd joined us, who did the Fred Heads documentary, the documentary on Nightmare on Elm Street fans. And go check that episode out. It's a lot of fun. And he joined us for our top 5 John Carpenter soundtracks because he's a big John Carpenter fan, and he's got a lot of John Carpenter memorabilia. He's met him several times, so that was a lot of fun. So that'll be Monday morning. That'll be up on the channel. And let's see what else I got up here. Oh, this Sunday is going to be a blast. So if you guys were hanging out with us last night in the chat, we had you'll see Colin Moody. If you guys don't know who Colin Moody is, he's a big fan. He's a big collector, good friend of ours. If you guys, if you guys watch The Thing with Two Heads with Sean Clark and Christopher Nelson, he's always in there. No, Christopher Nelson's always doing his Irish impression of him. So he's going to join us this Sunday for episode 16, and we're going to rank the Halloween movies, and he's going to show us his collection and tell us how he got into horror, whatnot. But he was hanging with us last night during the Halloween Ends watch along. If you want to check it out, it was a lot of fun. So that's coming up on Sunday night. At 7 p.m. Eastern. Usually we start at 8 p.m. Eastern. We're going to start at 7 p.m. Eastern because he's in Belfast, Ireland. So when we start, it'll actually be midnight. So we can start an hour earlier. So just give everybody a heads up. And it's also Father's Day. So everybody, all you fathers out there, have an amazing Father's Day. But we still will be on. And for any Kiss fans that may be on the channel, I'm a diehard Kiss fan. Last week I ranked all the Kiss 70s studio albums. Tomorrow morning up on the channel will be my ranking of the 80s Kiss studio album. So if you're a big Kiss fan, check it out. And then it gets even better because every week I do that 70s movie review where I review a movie from the 70s. And I was doing a lot of Kiss stuff, and I said, you know what? Let's do this. On Friday, my review of Kiss Meets the Phantom of the Park. If you're a Kiss fan, you know what this movie is. If you haven't seen it, go watch it. It's an hour and a half of fun, very cheesy 70s fun. Let's see what else we got. And then next Tuesday, we do our monthly comedy watch along. We usually watch a horror movie, but once a month we do a comedy watch along. And this is going to be a lot of fun. My son's sitting in for us this one again because it's one of his favorite movies. Caddyshack, live watch along on Tuesday. You don't want to miss that. If you guys like comedy, that is the movie to see. And that is all the shit that's going on this channel. How about that? That's all the crapola. So, guys, leave some comments. There's a bunch of comments in the chat. The Ghost Halloween theme, that's your favorite soundtrack? Yeah, that was, I don't want to be a spoiler, but just figure out what all of our favorites were. But there's so many John Carpenter soundtracks that are great. You got, obviously, Halloween, Escape from New York, They Live, Christine, The Fog. Just absolutely amazing music that he makes. More what? I'm not sure what that is. More Mickey Mimi today. I'm a little confused on that one. Help me out, Ghost. But that was a lot of fun. So also, if you're going to join us, make sure you have your ranking. We want to hear everybody's ranking of the Halloween films. Now, I did a standalone ranking of the Halloween films on this channel. So what I'm going to do is I'm not even going to go back and revisit it. I'm just going to do it live. And then after the fact, I'm going to go back and compare the two because things change. I doubt the first 5 will change. More. Oh, Michael Myers. No, Mike. Well, no, not tonight because we're just doing a Halloween 3 book club. No Michael Myers tonight. Yeah, we're just once we get through the Halloween 3 book, then it's all Michael Myers again. Yeah, we did Halloween 1, we did the Halloween 2 book, so you had all the Myers in the world. But this episode and one more episode, we're going to finish this out, and then we're going to be going to Halloween 4, which is a big fan favorite, Halloween 4. So let's join us when we do the book because there's a lot of differences from the book to the movie, and it's a lot of fun. It's a fun read. Now there's several different versions of the novelization. Nicholas Grabowski made the extra edition, the ultimate edition, but it's not that much. We're just going to do the first one, and we can discuss what some of the differences are in the other ones. So that'll be a lot of fun. And I'm actually going to reach out to him, see if I can get him on here, and talk about doing a novelization of Halloween 4. Let's get some of the authors. I'm going to try to reach out to them. We had Dustin McNeil on 2 weeks ago, who was the author of Taking Shape 1 and 2, and a couple other horror books like Phantasm. Go check that out because I'm going to see if I can reach out to him and maybe have him on when we do the book clubs of the Taking Shape books. It should be cool to have the actual author on the book clubs. Make sure you do your homework then. Samhain, well, yeah, you did have that mentioned in here because that is basically the Festival of Samhain, which is Samhain. But that is it for this week. Hope everybody enjoyed this. If you're following along on this, not everybody wants to read books, but make sure you check the links because there is the audio version of it. You don't even have to read it if you don't own it because the books are expensive to own. But make sure you come back in 2 weeks and we'll finish up the novelization, discuss in depth the different things that happened. We'll tell you about the Halloween 4, which is going to start. Make sure you like, subscribe, all that happy horse shit. And I hope you like all the content on here. It's all Halloween. It's all horror. It's music. It's you name it. There's a bunch of shit on here. Comedies. We just don't like to stick to one thing. We just like to be all over the map. So until next time, which will be Sunday night, we'll see you guys Sunday night, 7 p.m., not 8 p.m. At 7 p.m., we'll hang out with our buddy Colin Moody, and we'll rank the Halloween movies. So make sure you come back for that. And I will talk to all you guys soon.